Welcome back to OU Insider YouTube Live. Yeah. Hey, 15-yard penalty, unsportsmanlike conduct. Hopefully the audio is working now. I know my mic is not because I'm about to throw this piece of crap adapter. But Parker, yeah, we talked about earlier on the podcast. What a big day for Oklahoma. Obviously, with the fact that they got their first commit in the 2023 class, and Caleb Spencer. That took place about 5 o'clock. Bet on himself, as he tweeted out, and chose the University of Oklahoma. A serviceable backup. OU fans were looking for that. Obviously, look, and this isn't to downgrade what Oklahoma has. We all believe Nick Evers is going to be a player at some point or another. It's a freshman. He has not done it. This was his first spring going up against Division I talent. It is going to take place eventually. So, is our audio bad again?
I think we're still up. Oh man, I tell you what, some days these things get off seamlessly, and some nights are just not our nights, and we have had one issue after another. So hopefully everything's coming through.
I'm in Tyler, Texas. I just got here, man. So I just got here. We logged in the second I got into Tyler, Texas. Going to see Jordan Raynaud tomorrow. Parker, you've been all over the place as well. Talk about your travels this weekend. I think you went through some of Dallas, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And okay, looks like the stream has stabilized. So
Amen.
Spencer has been fighting the demons of technology behind the scenes all night. So thank you. Thank those of you who have bore with us, I suppose would be the past tense version, but everybody that's stuck it out through the myriad of difficulties that we've had getting the show off the ground tonight. Your patience is much appreciated. But yeah, so I was in Dallas this past weekend, spent time at several different stops along the east side of the DFW Metroplex, stopped in Melissa for 4-star 2024 defensive lineman Nigel Smith, made my way then to Frisco Lone Star for 4-star defensive back Jalen Braxton in the class of 2023. Stopped by Lovejoy to see 2024 4-star linebacker Peyton Pierce. And then my last stop on Saturday was Crandall, Texas, a little small town of about 3,000 people to the east of the Metroplex, which of course is the home of 3-star linebacker Sammy Omosigho, who is a heavy Oklahoma lean at this point in the process. And as I reported yesterday on OU Insider VIP, Omosigho is going to be among the official visitors on Champ Barbecue weekend for the Sooners. Champ U Barbecue weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Champ U Barbecue.
There you go. Yeah.
I do want to add something to that because people kind of assume it's going to be like the past staff where it's 2024 and 2023. They're not doing that. It's going to be strictly on June 4th will be 2023 recruits. June 18th, I believe, is the other Champion Barbecue. That will be 2024, 2025 recruits that will come in. It'll be more the underclassmen type recruits that they will host that weekend. So when you see kids say, I'm going to the Champion Barbecue, you need to look at what class they're in because that's going to tell you, where they're going to be. Now, much like junior days where they try to have it strictly 23 and 24, there's going to be spillover, of a few here or there sprinkled in because that's the only time those, players can make it. But I wanted to clear that up before we started talking about Champion Barbecue and we start saying Champion Barbecue June 18th, Champion Barbecue, June 4th. People are going to get confused like, whoa, what are you talking about? One's 24, 25 recruits. The other one is strictly 23. And you're going to have some official visits on the June 4th one, whereas June 18th, you might have a couple, you won't have a lot.
Exactly. And obviously Beville wasn't the only commitment to pop today for Oklahoma. Obviously that was the one that most everybody was waiting on. You had the rumors that Gary Bohannon was maybe in play. And that was never really a likelihood. I don't think just because a guy like him gets in the portal because he's not the starter, he's going to go somewhere where he can start. So Missouri and or his eventual destination, USF, were always the more likely candidates to land his services. But there was a point in time where OU felt pretty good about Bohannon. At the end of the day, they get their guy in Beville, and he really is the best of both worlds in that he is a serviceable backup quarterback, but he's also, I suppose I'll phrase it this way. He's capable of filling the void if Dillon Gabriel is to go down due to injury, but he's not going to challenge Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel is not going to feel threatened by Davis Beville's presence. So really the perfect fit. There you go. But no, Beville is a perfect fit in the sense that he's got 3 years of eligibility left. So he's not in a rush to start. It's not going to be, I'm taking the snaps or I'm hitting the road like it probably would have been with a guy like Bohannon, who very much had a ticking clock in terms of his collegiate eligibility. And moreover, Beville's a guy that has experience at the Power 5 level, played for Pitt I think most extensively in the bowl game, because Kenny Pickett opted out, obviously with his first round draft stock pretty much secured. And that gave Beville the opportunity to strut his stuff against Michigan State. He was above average in that game, nothing spectacular, but he made some nice throws and demonstrated some decent mobility. So obviously that was one of the things that we were kind of tossing around and wondering about for the last couple of months, Brandon, is who's going to be the backup quarterback? Who's the guy that they're going to bring in via the portal? It turns out to be Davis Beville, all things considered. Really, really nice fit for Oklahoma and for Davis Beville. And he can enter 2023 with at least a puncher's chance to start. But less than an hour later, the Sooners also get their first prep commitment in over 3 months. Ashton Cozart on February 5th was the last commitment that Oklahoma had on the recruiting trail. And it's been a while, Brandon, since the Sooners had a drought like that. And it's kind of understandable. We talked about it. That's just a natural byproduct and consequence of the new recruiting philosophy for Brent Venables and his staff. But it had been over 3 months since they had any commitments from the high school ranks. That dry spell ends with the commitment of Caleb Spencer, 3-star hybrid safety linebacker from the state of Virginia. Took a couple of visits with Oklahoma, most recently for the spring game on April 23rd. Was sold, actually committed on the field at the spring game, and obviously announces here a couple weeks later. So this is a dude that's all in with Oklahoma. He's their 5th commitment of the 2023 cycle. And I think he projects really nicely to that cheetah position, or perhaps if he bulks up to the right extent, he could be more of a traditional outside linebacker. But one way or another, he's probably a guy that sits best at that second level more so than the traditional safety position. If you watch the tape, he's really technically sound. He hits hard. He flies around, takes great angles to the football. This is a guy that's going to see his stock rise on the recruiting trail. So there are always the perpetual cynicists who take a look at a guy like that and say, well, 3-star, how good can he be? I guess that's what they're doing at Oklahoma now, is recruiting 3-stars. But Caleb Spencer's a guy that's more than capable of playing some high-level football at the University of Oklahoma once he matriculates on campus. So great addition for Oklahoma.
Yeah, look, the whole 3-star, I think it kind of irritates me sometimes when people instantly go and, well, that's just a 3-star. Here we are, we're 3-star But go and look at the recruiting classes for years at Oklahoma. 12 4-stars, a couple 5-stars, and almost, I'm not saying you're going to get a couple 5-stars every year, but normally double-digit 4-stars, exceedingly 4-star heavy classes almost each and every year. That's what makes Oklahoma so good and talented. That's why I produce so many NFL guys, because they recruit at that level. But they also evaluate a lot of those 4-stars that Oklahoma gets. they start out as like 3 stars during this, and you see it like Robert Spears Jennings. There's a host
RSJ
of,
is always going to be the prototypical example of that.
you know, Jaden Rowe. I mean, there's plenty of those types that Oklahoma's done for years where they've got them, and next thing you know, as the season rolls on for their senior year, you watch them just and then they skyrocket up. And that's kind of the vibe I got from talking to Brian Doan. He called me. He was like, "Hey, is Caleb Spencer committing?" And I was, "Yes, he's going to go to Oklahoma." And we talked about it. He reached out to obviously his coach and Caleb Spencer as well, and got some really good quotes for us. I know you inside if you haven't checked it out, it's free. But he said he's a guy that we're going to watch really close. And Doan's on that committee. He's on the rankings committee, and he's somebody that I value his opinion a lot because he doesn't bullcrap. Like it's cut and dry with Doan. Like there's no in between with him, and that's why I respect him so much because he's not going to BS you at all. He's going to tell you straight up, "I don't like that guy," or "I love him."
And to cite a very recent example, one that we just brought up, Brian Doan was one of the first on the Robert Spears Jennings bandwagon when he really started to take off.
Yeah, he called. I was at our lake house. I remember it because it was at the lake house, and he was down at the pylon at the Star for the 7-on-7. He calls me. He's like, "Who is this Robert Spears Jennings guy?" And I said, "Dude, he's a guy I think is going to be a safety and going to be a really good one." And I told Robert that 2 years ago, and he goes, "You're right. I totally agree with you on that." And from that point on, you kind of got the idea that RSJ was never going to be the same for him. And he was about to explode. And that's exactly what he did. Offer after offer after offer. Oklahoma came in, evaluated him in person, offered him. And next thing you know, the rest is history. He's going to Oklahoma as a safety, which is the perfect spot for a guy with his build. I think Samuel Omasigo, a guy that you went and saw, is a lot like Caleb Spencer. I think those are the type of players that Venables has notoriously gone after and turned into really, really solid guys over the years. Guys like Travis Lewis wasn't a linebacker. He was a running back. Teddy Lehman, running back. Rocky Kelmas, running back. I mean, these are guys that were just football players that he turned into really good linebackers, taught them the basics, how to read, react, the keys to look for, all that type of stuff. And I think if Omasigo does what we all expect him to do, and that's end up at Oklahoma at some point in time, you've got two really long, athletic guys that can put on weight that are going to remind a lot of people of another former non-linebacker that just so happened to end up being the first rounder in a 2020 draft named Kenneth Murray. And they're built a lot of the same, that 6'2", 6'3", 210-pound body frame. But when they get on campus, who knows what's going to happen to them, right? I mean, blow up to 240, next thing you know, boom. And you got that speed to go with it. And that ferocity that they play with, because that's essentially what I see in Caleb Spencer. I saw a lot in K9, how his run fit at the safety position. He just was like a heat-seeking missile at the safety position in high school. I think it was Missouri City.
City.
Yep. So it wasn't Fort Bend. Missouri City wasn't Fort Bend. Elkins. That's right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Those are the guys that I don't know, for some odd reason Oklahoma always they're really successful at OU. So, and look, I don't know, we talked about Beville, we talked about Caleb Spencer. Oklahoma may not be done here in the next 24, 48 hours. There could be some more good news popping up for Oklahoma on the roster additions, if you will.
You don't say.
Yeah, we hinted about that on OU Insider VIP earlier today.
And by the way, to answer a query that someone raised in the YouTube live chat, speculating as to whether Davis Beville was the tallest quarterback in OU history. No, Tommy Grady, 6'7". Very few people remember that Tommy Grady was ever a center, but yes, Tommy Grady has that title.
How tall was Brent Ross? 6'4", 5"?
He was 6'5".
6'5". was also falling out of the back of trucks, so there's that too. But yeah, so I've also been on the road. Uh, Went all over the ATL area. Saw a lot of really talented guys that are very high on Oklahoma. I started out with T.A. Cunningham, 2024 5-star defensive lineman. Went and saw Heaven Brown Schuler, another 2024 5-star defensive lineman. 2023 4-star defensive lineman, Caden McDonald. 2024 5-star DV, KJ Bolden, 2024 5-star edge rusher, Edric Houston. No, I'm missing people off the top of my head here, but long story short is Oklahoma's in a really good spot for a lot of those guys I just named. Now, obviously, they just offered Edric Houston. I thought they should have offered him a long time ago. I went and saw. This is the third time I went and seen Edric, and each time I just his frame, he gets bigger and bigger and bigger. He's an impressive looking kid, but he likes Oklahoma, and I think that Buford area, with Ted Roof being from North Gwinnett and his son going to Buford, there is some connection there that Oklahoma has a chance to really shock some people on the recruiting trail, especially in Georgia. And I think that was kind of the vibe I got. And I wrote this in the update. If you haven't seen it, it's Drumbeat. It's the Peach State update. And we'll get some more notes. There's some random notes in there. There's some team notes, program notes, all that type of stuff that I dropped as well, as far as like some pretty in-depth things that you all will want to know if you haven't seen it yet. And we're not going to dive into a lot of that here for the free part, but I will say this, that Heaven Brown Schuler said something that I thought was really intriguing. I think free or not, it's like one of the coolest quotes. If you were an Oklahoma fan, you're going to love this quote. I said, you went to a practice watching Oklahoma. What was your impression of OU at a practice? Heaven is probably one of the nicest, smartest kids I've ever covered. Like, he is so smart. Like, and it is awesome to have a conversation with him because he talks to you. He's talking about interest rates and cost of living in certain areas and the square footage of certain spots in Atlanta that cost certain amount. Like, that was this type of conversation he was diving into with me at one point. And so he's like just really in tune with everything. Really, really bright kid. And he goes, the one thing I noticed about Oklahoma was the culture, but also Brent Venables. And I was like, Brent, what about Brent Venables? Did you notice that nobody else has noticed? He goes, well, we were talking on our group text, and I made an analogy that he reminds me a lot of Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney mixed together. And I was like, that's some heady, that's a heady comparison there. And he dove deeper and he said, well, he's really serious like Nick Saban about football, and it's business all the time, but he also really cares for the players like Nick does, or he says Coach Saban, like Coach Saban does. And he said, and Dabo does the same thing. He goes, but the serious part of Brent and Coach Saban are very alike, he said. He goes, but then you get to watch him and how animated he gets on the field and how crazy he gets and how much fun he can also have. And he said that he's like a perfect balance between the two. And he goes, that's why I really like Oklahoma. That's why I can't wait to get back in June if I can make it up there. Like, I'm excited about that type of coaching because, and I quote, Brent Venables is the GOAT at defenses. He has had 10 straight top 10 defenses. He did it at Oklahoma before he did it at Clemson, so he's done it almost 20 times. Who wouldn't want to play for that? And at that point in time, that was about the time I realized that with the connections Oklahoma has in the state of Georgia, with them being from Clemson, with them being from Alabama, the Florida area, all the coaching staff, all their connections in that region, they're going to shock some people because that is the view that these kids have of Oklahoma right now. And how different is that in comparison to what it was not 6 months ago in the SEC region? Without being like a legacy, like it's just different. And it was a weird vibe that I hadn't gotten there before. Because I came on the tail end of Oklahoma being around all these schools. So they were kind of the topic of conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's different. It's different. They're going to shock some people in the SEC region as far as recruiting goes.
Well, and one of the things that I think gets lost in translation, and it shouldn't, but it's something that a lot of folks just overlook or fail to consider, is that Oklahoma's moving to the SEC. And there are certain listeners that probably hear that observation. They're like, okay, sure, Parker, they're moving to the SEC. Yes, but that alone is going to put them in contention for a lot of these players that they wouldn't otherwise have been able to land, even with Brent Venables and Todd Bates. Obviously, the driving force behind Oklahoma's foray into the Peach State and Alabama and Florida, it's Venables and it's Bates and it's Jay Valai and it's Miguel Chavis and it's all the relationships that those guys cultivate. But the other thing that Oklahoma has that they didn't used to have is that SEC patch on the jersey. And that carries weight. I have talked to many a prospect, Brandon. I'm sure you have as well, whether in the 23 class, the 24, the 25, whatever. They want to play SEC ball. That's one of their criteria. And it's obviously something that is, it's a goal and not necessarily a deal breaker for them. They have to earn the SEC interest. But once they have SEC schools in the mix, from their point of view, there's no conference that's going to offer them competition that can square with what they're going to get in the SEC. So that is another area in which Oklahoma is poised to make a lot of noise and recruitments that they hadn't previously been able to pry into, is because not only do you have Brent Venables running a completely new show in terms of philosophy, in terms of overall feel, in terms of culture, but you also have the SEC. And that matters almost as much.
Yeah, there's not much more to add to that. I mean, it's a different vibe, definitely in that region. I mean, you've got even players like a Peter Woods out of Birmingham, Alabama, who is most likely going to take an official to Oklahoma. Like, he's nailing one down for the month of June. And then you've got Kavion Henderson, who's most likely coming back in the middle of June. Mario Craver, who's also coming back in the middle. Kavion Henderson, and I was talking to a source who said, and I know that he did it with me and he did it with you as well, where he said Oklahoma was my top school right now. And Heaven Brown Schuler said the same thing to me. He goes, Kavion loves Oklahoma, like absolutely loves Oklahoma, because they're really good friends. And I said, do you think that's one of those deals where he's just, telling you what he thinks, you want to hear? And he goes, no. He's pretty serious. So I'm talking to somebody else that knows him really well, and he goes, he doesn't BS. Like, Kavion doesn't BS. Now, you have to add this part of it. Being the top school in May of 2022 when your 2024 can recruit is one thing. Being the top school in December of 23 is a completely different deal. And that's something Oklahoma is going to have to work with, because guess what? Alabama and Georgia are still a stone's throw away from where those guys live. So it's never going to be easy for Oklahoma to make those type of pulls out of those states. But I think they're getting to the point where they're going to be able to do that 2 or 3 times a year and really shock people and go, okay, maybe they are for real, Now, you can't get carried away with that either, because there's going to be times where Oklahoma fans expect something good to happen in the state of Texas, and those same schools that Oklahoma just pulled the rug out from underneath are going to do the same thing to them in Texas, because it works that door works both ways. It opens both ways. You know, if the SEC works for Oklahoma in SEC territory, ACC territory, it's going to do the same thing for those programs. The more, especially in the state of Oklahoma, there's going to be a time when a big name recruit that almost assuredly was going to Oklahoma at any other point in time, but now that the SEC is coming to play in the state of Oklahoma year in and year out, they're going to choose one of those schools over OU at some point. And it is going, and I know it's happened before, but it's going to probably happen more than OU fans are ready for that to happen. Because it's been kind of like every few years, something like that takes place. No, man, it's going to happen way more often now. The same thing that's happening to all these other schools.
Yeah, Brandon, one of our viewers pointed out in the Q&A chat that you haven't given your obligatory shout out to Ricardo LeBlanc. So you want to take care of that?
Oh, he actually texted me in the middle of this. So what's up? Yep, he actually did. So he actually
there
did
you go.
me.
Now, a lot of folks wondering where Oklahoma stands with David Stone and Stacey Gage. Look, the reality is Oklahoma, if you've heard David Stone talk about Oklahoma, you know exactly where his head's at. It's not any particular secret where he wants to be. And at this point, Brandon, we're just kind of waiting on an announcement and not necessarily sure when that's going to be at this point, but it is a very, very safe bet that David Stone's going to be a member of that class of 2024 for Oklahoma. And you look like you want to interject here.
Well, he called me last week when I was in Georgia and talked to me for like 45 minutes. Yeah, he's still not shy about Oklahoma, but at the same time, you know, he's got a lot of other things that he's juggling right now. So I don't think that like committing is not like real high up on his list of things to do. Like, I think he's trying to find himself being away from his parents for the first time for an extended period. And I think it hasn't been as easy as you know, people might think it is, even in that structured, secluded environment of IMG. So I think that's what I'm gonna be watching more than anything else is where does he finish his high school career? I think is what I'm gonna be watching more than anything else. So I think that's kind of the first and foremost. Now I'm going to lean that he's going to end up back at Oklahoma at some point in time. Now, I'm not saying this year because I think he plays at IMG this season. Now, and a lot of people do that. They go to IMG, they play a year, then they end up back. They go back home after they've tested themselves against the best all year and kind of gotten better. And that's kind of a format that a lot of the big name guys have done. There's probably 100 kids that we could probably sit here and name that's gone to IMG for a year, sophomore, junior year, and then their senior year, they go back home and they finish it out. I think there's 4 or 5 that have done that already this year. Stacey Gage is back in Tampa after 2 years at IMG. So he's at Tampa Tech High School, I believe is where he's at now. That's kind of a thing with IMG. They're going to continue to get the best of the best show up. But a lot of guys only show up for a year or two, and then they're gone off to wherever else they want to finish their high school career at. So that's kind of something I've been watching. Another big name out there is Zadavian Sims, who is moving to Durant. Like, he's transferring to Durant in early June. Like, that's going to happen as of today. And if that changes, we'll update you guys on that. But I was with him yesterday, and him and his mom, and talked to them, and they are pretty much, you know, working on finalizing everything for an early June move to Durant, Oklahoma, if they can make that happen. So good for him after everything he's been through with the UIL in Texas. That's been a rough deal for him. Durant's also going to get 2026 defensive end. Oh my gosh, the kid from Caddo,
Colton Yarborough.
Colton Yarborough. I just talked to him about that yesterday too. So yeah, they're gonna be pretty loaded. They got a 2025 defensive back that's really good. Probably more of a strong safety linebacker type. At the end of the day, they're going to be loaded, and they might get another transfer to up from Texas as well. So we'll see.
Sounds like we might be making a few trips to Southeast Oklahoma this next fall, Brandon. Between those guys and Ravion Larry
every
at
Sunday.
Idaho, oh yeah, that's right.
Every Sunday I'm there. That's how I'm around them. I mean, my kid's out there with them. So yeah, every Sunday they do the practice, and while the 7-on-7 guys are practicing, Sean Cooper's in there training the older big guys, the edge rushers, the D lineman, the O lineman, all that type of stuff. So we get to talk to those guys all the time. I believe Zadavian Sims will be back in Norman on June the 1st for a camp visit type deal. So that'll be good for Oklahoma. He's really good. Like, he's progressing well. He just needs film. Once he gets film, he could be a 5-star easily, because he was the MVP of the Under Armour camp too in Dallas. So, which is weird to say with DJ Hicks and Jordan Renaud and all those guys. They were really good. But Sims was really good that day too. So it's been a while since Texas has been that loaded, and Oklahoma, Texas area has been that loaded defensive line wise.
No doubt. One of our viewers asked me to talk about Peyton Pierce. And as far as Peyton Pierce is concerned, for those of you that aren't VIPs over at OUinsider.com, first off, I'd encourage you to go ahead and sign up. Get your first month for $1. If you don't like the value, you can go your merry way. But I have a feeling that the information that Brandon and Joey Helmer and I are feeding you on a day in, day out basis is going to make you want to stick around, because the stuff you get on this YouTube live is only a drop in the bucket compared to what you get with VIP membership over there. With Peyton Pierce, there are a lot of OU ties there. And in particular, what gives Oklahoma very, very good standing with that kid is the fact that he grew up wanting to play for Brent Venables at Clemson. That was always his dream. But he also grew up an OU fan. And so when Brent Venables took the head coaching job at Oklahoma, as you can imagine, that destination became all the more alluring to Peyton Pierce. And as far as the type of kid he is on the football field, listen, I am 100% sold on this guy. As a sophomore in high school, he's 6'1", 225 pounds. He doesn't need any further physical development. He's ready to go play linebacker at the Power 5 level. I mean, the next 2 years of prep ball for him are pretty much gravy, because that dude's a lifelong wrestler. He's so well built, so impressively built, and plays so tenaciously that he is ready to go play college football today. And I do expect that he will be a top 100 recruit. He will maintain his status as a top 100 guy by the end of the cycle, and could ultimately find his way into the top 50. He's also such an athlete, Brandon, that he was actually going to enter the 2021 season in competition with Michael Hawkins to start at quarterback for Allen. To this day, Peyton Pierce is the only freshman that's ever started at the varsity level for Allen. And obviously he transferred to Lovejoy for his sophomore year, but that gives you an indication of what type of elite football player Peyton Pierce is. When you are literally in a league of your own in terms of what you've accomplished at a place like Allen High School, that carries a lot of weight. So really excited to see how he continues to develop. Really excited to see what he does as a junior for Lovejoy. And obviously there's a lot of reason to believe that Oklahoma is ultimately going to be the destination for him.
Yeah, I've exchanged several texts. I was supposed to actually go down there to see him. I was going to go whenever I made my trip down. I think it was next week, whenever I do like the spring game visits and stuff like that. So, tell me that is your face froze like that? Yes.
Wow, that sucks.
That was glorious, man. I'm sorry. Anyways, yes, he's one of those ultimate legacies, right? That really likes the Sooners a lot. Oh my gosh. All right. Anyways, back to Peyton. Some people ask about other people. I can't even concentrate on Peyton Pierce now. Somebody asked about Jacoby. Yeah, Jacoby's going to visit for the Champion Barbecue. So is LeBlanc. Yeah, they're both coming in. Jacoby actually has his Metro team camp as
You gonna make it, Brandon?
I don't know, man. I'm like that was one of the funniest faces ever. So Jacoby's Mustang's got a team camp. There's gonna be a lot of teams there. Like usually it's McGinnis. I'm trying to think Midwest City, Yukon, Edmond Santa Fe. Like there's a host of teams that usually are there, and it's kind of a big time deal. And a lot of talent shows up for that. So he'll be involved in that with his team. And I think what's going to happen is, and don't quote me on this because it's not 100% set up yet, but I think his plan is to finish out that Saturday and be done about 1:00, and by 2:00 be in Norman for his visit to Oklahoma. So yeah, that's the plan. That's kind of where they're headed. As far as Derek LeBlanc goes, yes, he will be at the Champion Barbecue. I think he's arriving on the 1st or 2nd and will leave on the 5th. So he'll be there for 4 days again, 3 or 4 days again in Norman. So that's another good visit for Oklahoma. And another visitor that he told me he was going to take a visit for the Champion Barbecue, but the school he's committed to, I think, is trying to kind of stop that. Would obviously be Peyton Bowen, 4-star safety commit Notre Dame out of Denton Geyer. So far, right now, he's told me he is going to visit Oklahoma for the Champion Barbecue. I will be seeing him on May 18th at his spring game. So I'll have way more information when that rolls around as well. And after that, I will be before and after that, I'll also be going around OK Preps, doing those rounds. And then on the 22nd, I'll be flying out, or the 22nd, I fly out in the morning to Florida. And early that morning, Brian Bishop and I will hit the road on Monday on the 23rd. So 23rd through the 27th, we will be out on the road going from Miami, the very beginning of Miami, all the way up to Tampa, through Orlando, all of that area, even going over seeing Richard Young as well. So we're going to have a lot of information for you guys. Richard Young's supposed to be visiting, I believe June 9th is his official visit, 9th or 10th. I can't remember the exact date. What weekend? Is it the 9th? Is it the 9th? Is that the weekend? Help me out here, Parker. What's the second weekend? What's the second weekend?
The second weekend of June would be the
11th
through the 12th.
10th through the 12th. That's when he's going. 10th through the 12th, he'll be at Oklahoma. As of now, that is what he has told our Andrew Ivins. So I'm going to go recheck on that in late May, and hopefully we'll have some more information on that, because I know people are asking about Richard Young. Surprisingly, and I know I say that surprisingly, I'm not surprised. People that I've talked to kind of feel Oklahoma is kind of that sneaky team with him, but at the end of the day, it's kind of Ohio State and Alabama. That's what I keep hearing. So we'll see how that plays out. Is there any more questions on there that you've seen? Right?
Oh, they've been flying. Okay, who would be? This is a good one. This is one we can run with a little bit. Who would be the biggest surprise to commit to OU?
Ooh, biggest surprise. Like, okay, do we need to preface this? Like, do they need to be legit or just out there? Like, because I can name.
You can just take this any direction.
Arch Manning. Arch Manning. I mean, like that okay. In all seriousness, like, are we talking like
Okay.
somebody that's
Yeah.
realistic?
Hey, I guess
Because that's so easy. Arch Manning would be the easiest pick of all
Okay,
time.
yeah,
because
sure.
they've already got a-
let me clarify a little bit, and hopefully this is somewhat commensurate with the original intent of the question. But what player could OU legitimately land in the 2023 class that would surprise people? Maybe a guy that they're on the radar for right now, but not necessarily the front runner for.
Ooh, man. I think I would have to say Richard Young, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
figured that's the direction you were going.
I mean, I just said it. Like, he's quiet. Oklahoma is like that quiet dark horse. Everybody that you talk to about him was like, yeah, they kind of have a chance. He keeps showing up. I mean, this will be what, his second, third trip to Oklahoma over the last few years. So he keeps showing up. Why is that? Right? I mean, and this one's going to be an official this time. So he's got family in Alabama, and obviously Ohio State has done a fantastic job recruiting. But DeMarco Murray has, I mean, he just keeps, every time somebody throws a waylay punch at Oklahoma to try to knock him out, he just kind of dodges it and kind of keeps staying in the ring for the fight. So as long as Oklahoma's swinging away, I would say Richard Young. I don't know why that it. You name yours, and I'm gonna actually see if I can find a different one.
Well, the one I would say would be the most, I don't know if he's necessarily the most likely candidate. I think the most likely candidate among legitimate shockers would be Richard Young. But another guy that I don't know if I would necessarily cultivate any expectations of this happening, but what if the Sooners end up with Peter Woods?
That's a really good one. That's a good one.
Obviously,
that's a good
everything has been trending in Alabama's direction for the longest time in that recruitment. But the one thing that kind of makes me skeptical, and look, I am still convinced that he ends up at Alabama when it's all said and done. So I am not saying to expect that he ends up anywhere but Tuscaloosa playing for Nick Saban. But the one thing that kind of causes me to think twice and kind of makes me to double back with skepticism is, well, you know what? You're from Alabama. You're an Alabama legacy. You've talked from the get-go in your recruitment about how much respect you have and admiration you have for the Alabama program. Why haven't you committed to Alabama yet? That's the one thing that makes me reticent is if it's really 1,000% going to be Alabama, why hasn't he committed yet? And I'll tell you what, Brandon, the Sooners made their way into Peter Woods' top 4 strictly because of Todd Bates. Peter Woods to this day has never been on campus at Oklahoma. So what happens if he decides to take an official visit to OU and loves it?
Yeah.
There is an iota of a chance that maybe the Sooners get in Alabama's way and end up with Peter Woods. Again, it is not something that I am expecting. It is not something I am saying to be optimistic about. But if we're talking about big time shockers, that could be one that is maybe more plausible than the rest.
That was a really good one. I am going to go, I liked my original pick. I really did. But there's another one out there that I think is also kind of in the same vein as you. His dad is obviously a big NFL coach. Not a lot of people expect him to leave the SEC, ACC region. And when I say the SEC, ACC region, you're talking like Southeast part of the country. And that would be Troy Bowles. He's already visited Oklahoma. It looks like he's going to come back for an official visit. You don't hear his name a whole hell of a lot, but when you do, you hear this. He really likes Brent Venables, and he really likes Oklahoma, and he's built a really good relationship with Ted Roof. I would kind of say he would be in that line of shocking commits out of the hole if that was to happen. So now I don't know if it's in the Peter Woods, Richard Young category, but he's up there as far as like realistic guys. When I say realistic, as far as like he's visited Oklahoma, so obviously there's some sort of chance there. So I think that I think he would be a good name, and he would be an amazing gift for Oklahoma too. You're talking a coach's kid, knows the game of football, grew up around it like that. Come on.
That recruitment to me has some parallels to Javante Barnes's recruitment last year, in that you really have to be tuned in. You really got to be paying attention to understand OU's got more than a legit shot with that kid. And
Yeah.
Javante Barnes was one of those guys that just didn't talk a whole lot throughout the recruitment. So obviously, for a kid from the Las Vegas area who visited Florida State several times, who visited Alabama several times, who obviously had USC right down the road, to the casual fan, to the casual observer on the recruiting trail, you would have figured, okay, well, Javante Barnes will be a Trojan, or he'll be a Seminole, or he'll go to Alabama and play for Nick Saban. But to people who are really tuned in and people who really paid attention to the ins and outs of that recruitment and how the relationships were developing and the way that the ebbs and flows were transpiring, they knew Javante Barnes is serious about Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And in the end, it may have been a surprise to the more casual fans when Javante Barnes committed to Oklahoma, but nobody that was very much in tune with his recruitment was really all that shocked, because he'd been favoring Oklahoma for months at that point. But, you know, kind of like you're seeing with Troy Bowles, he doesn't do that many interviews. He's not super forthcoming about the details of his recruitment. And so for a kid that is from the state of Florida, it's not natural that you would take a look at a recruitment like that and say, yep, Oklahoma's going to be a big player there. But they are, and he's going to be in Norman for the Champion Barbecue. And that is one that is worth watching.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Somebody asked about offensive surprise because we named a bunch of defensive guys. I mean, oh goodness. I mean, I named Richard Young, so I mean, I guess that would be, obviously that's considered a surprise offensively, but at the end of the day, I mean, it'd have to be an offensive alignment. No, you want to know what the surprise would be? You want to know who it would be?
Who would it be?
Lucas.
Oh, Brandon.
Because I don't think Oklahoma, like right now, if you ask me, like, I know Oklahoma would love to have him, but I think that ship's sailed right now. A lot of ground needs to be made up there, both sides.
Yeah.
So that's who
I'm gonna say Dalen Smothers, the running back from North Carolina.
I think Oklahoma stands a really good chance to get him.
Yeah, and that's another one. Like, I'll compare that one to the Troy Bowles one too. You really got to be paying attention. Really got to be in tune if you're to realize and be cognizant of the fact that Oklahoma's got a legit chance to land Dalen Smothers. And it's a kid that goes to the same high school that Jeremiah Hall went to. So there's a connection there.
He moved.
Or I'm sorry, went to the same high school that Jeremiah Hall went to. He goes to he transferred to Chambers, I believe, if I recall correctly, but was formerly at Zebulon B. Vance, which is where Jeremiah Hall played his prep ball. So Smothers is going to be back on campus at Oklahoma over the summer. So look, with how much of a wrench got thrown into the whole running back picture and that whole equation for Oklahoma in the 2023 class, they're going to need some answers here. And obviously, they're the leader in the clubhouse for Dylan Edwards. I'm not at all sure that one's a slam dunk. So at a certain point, you can't put all your eggs in the Richard Young basket. I'm not even sure you can put most of your eggs in the Richard Young basket. Heck, I'm not even sure you can put multiple eggs in the Richard Young basket. So Dalen Smothers, can he become that guy that Trey Wisner seemed to be for the longest time for Oklahoma? The one guy that you can count on in this class. I'll be curious to see how his visit goes in June.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. June is, for y'all that haven't paid attention, June is going to be kind of a make or break month for this Oklahoma recruiting class, and I think just because they're putting, and I think it's not just Oklahoma that's doing it. Everybody across the board is doing official visits in June, and it's because a lot of these kids want to get their recruitment done by August or September 1st or Labor Day. That's just kind of where they're at as far as decisions go, because they don't want to have people calling them constantly when they're trying to do their schoolwork and focus on their season and play for a state title in their final year of high school football. So a lot of these guys, and they know that there's coaching changes are going to take place. So I think that's another thing that Oklahoma, I think there's going to be a lot. How am I going to word this? There's going to be 3 or 4 surprises at the end of the year that Oklahoma, we aren't sitting here talking about right now. Chances for Oklahoma to land these guys that Oklahoma is going to get beat out for, along with several other schools for, let's say, let's just throw Richard Young and say, and this is just an example. Do not take this at heart. Somebody's going to go, oh, well, he's saying Nick Saban is going to retire. Let's say that Alabama ends up with Richard Young and Ohio State's full because they ended up with 2 different running backs. Oklahoma just ended up with Dalen Smothers or somebody like to that extent, and they have 1 spot left. Well, much like Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, you're going to see a couple of players that are going to go, well, maybe I want to go check out this other school, because when that happens, these guys get to go take, if I remember correctly, oh no, they have to be committed to the school to take that other official, but they'll probably go take an unofficial or to someplace to go try to figure out what they want to do. And I think at that point in time, you'll see a surprise or two, a move here, a move there. And that was just an example. I don't think Nick Saban's retiring at the end of this year. I was just making an example because we just got talking about Richard Young, but that is going to happen in Oklahoma's favor this year because of the stability that they're going to have on the coaching staff, because it's so brand new. And there's not going to be a lot, at least we don't expect a lot of movement on the Oklahoma staff, at least not yet.
Somebody asked, who were some of the biggest recruiting surprises in recent years that worked in Oklahoma's favor? Last class, I don't know if any of them would qualify as an enormous surprise. I think the most surprising was probably when Jason Llewellyn committed, because it was about 6 days after he'd gotten the OU offer. He had 1 crystal ball prediction in favor of Texas. True. I had talked to him like 2 days before he committed, and he had given me 0 indication whatsoever that he was anywhere close to pulling the trigger. And then all of a sudden on a random Saturday morning, boom, he's committed to Oklahoma. So that was surprising. I'm trying to think. Obviously, the whole, but you kind of knew when Venables took the visit that Jaren Kanak was going to find a way to end up at Oklahoma. Yeah. The whole Kobe McKenzie saga, that was full of surprises. Were there any? Cedric Roberts committed out of the blue. That was another one.
That was really,
he was another guy where nobody anticipated that. I believe he was still committed to Baylor at the time, or if not, he had just very recently decommitted.
Just decommitted.
Yeah, that was one where we had no advance notice that was happening. It's just log into Twitter, boom, Cedric Roberts is committed to Oklahoma.
I think a good surprise. I'm trying to look here throughout Oklahoma's. Let's go 2020 here. I'm like trying to look through and see if there was like a surprise or two. I think Marvin Mims was a pretty good surprise because he was Stanford bound. Stanford bound. I think that was a really good surprise for Oklahoma. I think, this is just like, it's really hard because
generally the surprises work in the other direction for Oklahoma.
Yeah, because Steve Wilpong told it to me once. He said, "You know how I know when Oklahoma is going to get somebody? Because everybody knows Oklahoma is going to get it because they always have the most transparent commits. So, you want to know what? Jeremiah Cradell.
Oh, I remember that.
He was
Signing
going to
day.
Oregon. Yeah, and he was going to Oregon. And he surprised everybody on national television. Yep. That was a
OJ
pretty.
Cradell.
Yep. Marcus Stripling was another one.
Where was
Same
he
with
going?
Deshaun A&M. Deshaun
That's
White,
right.
A&M. He was committed to A&M. Flipped to Oklahoma. Surprised everybody. I mean, it's worked. It's worked in Oklahoma's favor. It doesn't happen as often as the other way around. But I think it's because we know what's going to happen with Oklahoma more often than not. So there's not a lot of surprises when you have sources and you're talking to people and you're in tune of what's going on. But for like a casual person out there that sees, well, this person says this, this, and this, and they see it go the other direction, well, that's a surprise. Yeah. Even if we're sitting there saying it's not.
Yeah. To put in layman's terms, what Brandon just said, I'm good at my job, therefore there are no surprises.
No. Grayson Halton, that was a good one. Grayson Halton was a good surprise for Oklahoma. That was actually really good. Yeah. That was.
I guess we had about a month's notice on that one though.
Like yeah, but I mean, we didn't see that one coming for the longest time. And No, it was Cavante Henry. That one was kind of quick. It was like a week. We had like a week notice on that.
Well,
we thought it was looking in Oklahoma's favor, but you weren't really sure because he was so quiet.
I can't believe I forgot that one because that was a bizarre one towards the end because he was committed to Michigan. He was committed to Michigan literally all the way up until National Signing Day. But he took the visit to Oklahoma, I want to say 3 weeks before signing day. And after that point, he was trending towards Oklahoma. Then a week later, he took the Arizona visit. And then after that, it was all trending Arizona. And then the day before National Signing Day, it was right back to OU.
R. Mason Thomas, too. That was actually a pretty decent surprise because everybody thought he was going to Miami at the end, and he just shocked everybody. Oklahoma. So there's been some surprises.
There have been.
In a good way for Oklahoma. And R. Mason Thomas could end up being a really big surprise.
That kid's going to be good. That kid's a good football player. Yep. Like, I'm excited to see what he turns into at Oklahoma because I don't know if he got his due as a recruit. And I do think our 24/7 rankings council saw a lot of things that a lot of other folks didn't see. And that's why they had him ranked significantly higher than any other recruiting service. I'm a huge fan of the way he plays the game. And he's going to need to get bigger.
Jackson Arnold.
But
I mean, we predicted it, but it was like really out of the blue kind of prediction.
Yeah.
That was a really good one, Jason.
I see some Nick Benito parallels with R. Mason Thomas. That's a guy that's going to need to get bigger. He will. And he's probably never going to be to the point where you feel completely comfortable with his stature. But he just got the it factor, man. He plays like his hair's on fire. Plays much the same way and pursues much the same way that Nick Benito did and does. So that could be your next Nick Benito. Oh, by the way, you know where our Mason Thomas hails from? Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Ironic. And they're both winners out of high school. One at obviously American. What was the other one? One of them was from.
Benito was STA.
St. Thomas Aquinas, and the other one was from Cardinal Gibbons.
Yep.
And Cardinal Gibbons won back-to-back state titles. So, I mean, they win, and he knows how to win. I think you have to have those type of guys in your culture. I mean, it's just given.
All right, Brandon, we want to hit one or two more, and we'll call it a wrap.
Any chance Gentry plays wide receiver 4.2 speed would be nice. When the recruiting pitch that Oklahoma did for him to keep him on board was they're going to allow him to try to return punts, try to return kicks, and maybe play a little bit of wide receiver here or there. he has to first learn the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's first and foremost. So don't hold your breath right now that that's going to be the case. Now, I think he might get to see him in the return game. I think he told me today he was up to 176, 180 ish. He's trying to get up to 185, 190 by August, and he thinks he can do it. So we'll see if he can. If he can weigh 190 at 6'1", and as fast as he is, he's and as smart as he is, he's got a chance to play as a freshman. Like he's got a chance to sneak into rotation. Is there another one we want to answer? Is it okay? What's Omasigo's timeline now that he's on his official?
July. Expected decision in July, I would say. And to be honest, and I wrote this on OU Insider VIP, it might not take that long. I just have a feeling it might not take that long. But I feel like we're saying that about a lot of OU targets lately. Kind of circle July on the calendar as the month where you can expect a final decision. So that is, and Omasigo doesn't have an exact timetable. I was obviously just down there talking to him on Saturday. He doesn't have a date. He doesn't have an exact timetable, but that vicinity of July is where he's kind of aiming right now.
Yeah, I want to say that, I think players like maybe even, a McDonald. Okay, we'll go Caden McDonald for instance. He wants to decide in September at some point. He says, well, he's going to be visiting Oklahoma in June, so he's going to Florida on June 1st. And these are unofficials because he wants to save his officials for late July and then into September. So I think maybe he'll wait, but let's see if Oklahoma starts rolling. And let's say in July they start getting a commit or two on the defensive line. Maybe a Jordan Renaud decides he wants to go to Oklahoma, or a Derek LeBlanc or somebody like that. Maybe they surprise a lot of people. You never know, because then Oklahoma now has the ability to pressure a few guys and go, oh, now we're running out of spots and you keep saying you want to be a Sooner. It's now or never type deal. So I think Oklahoma is already in that position with the edge rushers because they only got 2 spots. They're pushing by Job and PJ Adebawore really hard. And I think Adebawore is probably closer than Job because Job's going to name his top 6. We'll have that for you all on OU Insider when that's named, and we'll have it broke down for you. I've already talked to him. So, they're going to start – there's going to be pressure starting to be put on these kids at some point, whether it's late June, early July, mid-July. It's going to happen. And at that point in time, I think you're going to see Oklahoma's commitments start to skyrocket because they're going to actually have the ability to do stuff like that, where they can't do that right now because they've got 5 commits and a number of 25. So they got 20 spots still available. The kids are looking at them going, get out of here, man. You got 20 spots still available. You're over here trying to pressure us for. So, and I think when all the official visits start happening in June, you're going to start to see things fly off the kids are going to start flying off the board too.
You know, it's funny, Brandon. I went up last October, or maybe it might have been November. I think it was November. I went up last November to see Platte County play North Kansas City in the Missouri State playoffs. Mm-hmm. And if you'd have told me at that point, there's going to be a future top 100 edge rusher who ultimately commits to Oklahoma on the field at that game, I would have said, yeah, well, no crap. It's Sean Davian Bradley. Nope. Mm-hmm. Turns out it's going to be PJ Adebawore if everything continues to trend in that direction. And OU does have a significant lead in that recruitment. And he just continues to see his stock go up and up and up. And he was injured that night, which, man, if he hadn't been injured, that would have been arguably the most loaded high school game in terms of Missouri defensive line prospects that the state had ever seen, because you had Sean Davian Bradley, you had PJ, you had Edric Hill, and you had Dominique Orange, who signed with Iowa State. And the other 3 are all blue chips in the class of 2023. So there's a lot of talent on the field that night, but I tell you what, among those players, PJ Adebawore may turn out to be the best of all of them. And so if Oklahoma can close on him, that is a big pickup for them. And I don't think he's going to take too long to make his decision either.
Yeah, I think, and look, we're going to have all that for you guys. I think we can probably end here. I am going to be out seeing Jordan Renaud tomorrow, Wednesday. I'm going to for sure be down to see DJ Hicks. I'm trying to go by see Anthony Evans and Jacquez Petaway. And then from that point, I'm going to drive up to San Antonio. On Thursday, I will be by to see Tyler. My gosh, I just went blank now. Help me out here, Tyler. I'm going to see Tyler Turner, Colton Vasek at Westlake. I'm going to go see a lot of those. Obviously, Jaden Greathouse, and then maybe stop by Denton Ryan to see Anthony Hill on the way up after that on Friday before I make it home back to Mustang. So that is going to be my week. It's going to be quite busy. I'm going to have a lot of notes coming on OU Insider, plus everything that's going to be happening. Joe's going to be dropping his top 6 over here in the next week or so. We're going to have that. We're going to have all the information on that. We're going to have information on prep stuff. We're going to have information on Florida trips that I'm going to be on. Parker's going to be going around as well to a lot of schools. So we're going to have you guys loaded because we're going to be scattered out everywhere, bringing you guys as many notes as we possibly can leading up to the Champion Barbecue. That way you guys are ahead of the game. You know what to expect going into the Champion Barbecue. And then we'll have everything after the Champion Barbecue and then on with the month of June where the visits are going to be coming fast and furious because there's going to be multiple visitors each and every weekend all the way up to the last weekend of June. July 4th, I believe that starts the dead period all the way up to, I think, the second week of, not July 4th, but the Memorial Day weekend starts the dead period all the way up to the second week of July before they can start. July 20th through the 31st, they can take visits again. Oklahoma will host a few officials. They'll have another barbecue at the end of July, just like they always do. And then it'll be on to the season, Brent Venables' first season. So you're going to want to be on OU Insider. We're going to have that covered for you. We're going to be at every one of the football games. We're going to be at every time OU goes to an away game, we go down early because we go see OU targets within that region wherever they're playing. That way we can get the latest update for you guys as far as what's happening on the recruiting trail before the football game takes place. So we're going to have you guys locked and loaded with all sorts of information, whether it's team information, whether it's recruiting, all that stuff. You can sign up right now. $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards, or you can do $75. We'll get you a full year. It'll get you OU Insider. It'll get you 250 247 sports sites, all the VIP sites, whether it's Alabama, Oklahoma State, Texas, Texas A&M, LSU, Arkansas, you name it, USC. You can go peruse and see what's going on over there on those sites and see how their recruiting is going as well and compare it to what you're seeing on OU Insider. So you get the notes there. You get the notes away from OU Insider. You're going to be the most glued in college football fan possible. That's for sure if you're on OU Insider. Plus, we have the best national guys, whether it's Steve Wiltfong, Brandon Huffman, Brian Doan, Alan True, Greg Biggins, Andrew Ivins. I'm trying to think of all the names, and I can't. Blair Angelo. So we have so many guys everywhere. Gabe Brooks. I mean, we're loaded everywhere across the board as far as national guys and regional guys like Parker, myself, Mike Roach, Brian Peroni, you name it, Blake Alderman. I mean, we're loaded everywhere as far as that goes, and we'll have the latest for you guys. We all work together within the network, so we try to stay on top of everything as best we can to bring you guys the most up-to-date information. So $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards. $75 gets you 1 year as well. So if you start now, you'll get all the way through the season, all the national signing days, all the spring stuff. I mean, you'll be ready to go all the way up till almost the middle of May again. So We hope to see you guys there. We're growing. We had almost 200 new signups last month. We broke another record as far as traffic goes for the month of April, and we can't thank you OU fans enough because you guys continue to surprise us and support us, and we feel so blessed to be able to do what we do to bring you guys the day-to-day information that we do as far as Oklahoma athletics goes and recruiting goes. So thank you so much. Parker, do you got anything else?
I got nothing else, Brandon. We'll see you all next week. Actually, last thing, we will not see y'all next week. So because of some various scheduling conflicts that each of us staff members have throughout the month, we're not going to have a live show each of the next 2 weeks. But what we are going to do is essentially pre-recorded video. We'll just drop regular videos on the channel where we do Q&As with y'all. So if you have any questions that we did not get to or did not tackle on this YouTube live, drop them in the comments below, and then we will touch on them throughout the week in a series of videos. So that is going to be our approach for the next couple weeks. We'll be back to the lives May 30th. That will be the next live. But until then, we'll be interactive with you guys both on OU Insider VIP and on the YouTube. So we'll make sure your questions get answered, and we're breaking down everything as we typically do on this live, just in a little bit of a different format over the next couple of weeks.
So what we can do is we can put a question, a tweet up, and we can do it up on our Facebook. We can do it up on Instagram. We can say, get your questions. We'll take the, top 30 questions that we can choose from, and we will do a live. Parker and I will do a recorded Q&A where we sit here and talk about, your questions for you guys. We'll do a couple of those, I guess, in between now and then, and try to make that happen for you guys. Because I know some aren't VIP members, and hopefully that'll get you guys enticed to join us one of these days. We'll try to scratch your back a little bit, give you all some information that you may not get anywhere else. So, anyways. Want to thank you guys once again for joining us for the OU Insider Under the Visors YouTube Live. For Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed night.